Stress comes from the Latin strictus, which means to draw tight. So we think of an elastic band when it's pulled and it's stretched, it's under pressure, it's under tension, it's under stress. And if it's pulled too far, that band will snap and it usually hurts our fingers. So just like in real life, if we're put under too much stress, under too much pressure and tension, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt us physically and emotionally and socially as well. And stress is your body's natural physical, mental, and emotional response to any demand or threat. It's not inherently bad. In fact, a little bit of stress can help us and motivate us and keep us ready. So think of exams or think of interviews where they feel stressful, but they're situational and they will pass. Healthy stress, and this is the kind of stress that helps you perform, like the adrenaline rush before a presentation or the focus you get when you're working on a deadline, and it pushes you to do your best. Chronic stress, that is the harmful long term stress that comes from the persistent pressure without relief. And when stress hormones are constantly elevated, it can lead to serious health issues. And research shows that chronic stress is linked to a weakened immune system, poor sleep, and increased anxiety. So have a look at the picture above my head. What do you think's happening here? Overwhelmed. He's completely swamped. And don't we feel like that from time to time when we've just too much on, too much to do? If you think of the things that might cause us some of that stress, family, finances, work, home life, relationships, too much to do, and the expectations that we place upon ourselves or the expectations placed upon us from others. So, have you ever felt this overwhelmed, too much to do, or not sure where to start? I know I feel like that quite a lot. So, if we're stressed at home, we can bring it into work, and of course, some of us bring our work home with us as well. So, it's important to have ways of dealing with stress. But first, let's look at a definition. And this is the one I use most often. When we think the demands placed upon us exceed our ability to cope, what is the most important word in that sentence? A lot of people will say demands, placed, exceed, ability, cope, but the most important word there is think. The way we think about a challenge determines how overwhelming it will feel, which means changing thinking patterns can make coping feel more possible. And recognizing that think is the crucial word highlights how much power our own interpretation has in shaping experience and guides our approach to changing distress to make it more manageable. And this doesn't mean that you don't need some help or support to deal with certain stressful issues, but it's good to reframe the thoughts around the situation. And many times we thought, I can't do that, this is too much for me. But yet we end up that we can do it and it's not too much, or maybe we just don't do it at all and pull back from that. So, recognizing the stress in our bodies are constantly sending us messages, and stress shows up in unique ways for everyone. But there are some common signs, and the key is the learning to recognize your own stress signals so you can respond before you reach breaking point. I would normally do a mind body check in and do that twice a day. And I also encourage my clients to do a mind body check in on a regular basis so they notice exactly how their mind is feeling and how their bodies are feeling. And if you can start to recognize in the cues of the body, the headaches, fatigue, muscle tension in your neck, shoulders, or that churning feeling in your stomach, you might also recognize the emotional cues, irritability, worry, sadness, or feeling on edge, and also the behavioral cues, changes in your eating habits, overeating, undereating, withdrawing from social situations, or poor sleep. So it's always good to recognize the symbols, the symptoms of stress and how it shows up in the mind and the body. So why early awareness matters. So I'm just going to guide you to take a few minutes to write down the following. How does stress show up in your body and your behavior? So you might look like physical signs. You might look for physical signs like headaches, fatigue, muscle tension, and that's the body's attempt to warn of underlying stress before it becomes overwhelming. Emotionally, stress rises as irritability, racing thoughts, and difficulty focusing. And that's signals that, when noticed and named, open the door to interventions and recovery. The human stress response disables the body's repair process, so consistent exposure without addressing the root cause amplifies the risk for chronic disease. And ultimately, recognizing these subtle cues give the opportunity not just to recover, but to become fully resilient, more resilient, making stress signals not just warnings, but gateways to healthier adaptation. So just take a moment and reflect on that question. How does stress show up in your body and your behavior? So if you find this helpful and want to know more about stress, the issues it causes, or how to manage stress more effectively, get in touch today.